All right, and with that, this installation is done. A job that I never thought would be finally done is finally done. My friend Stacy that does awnings for RVs asked me if I could build him an off-grid capable RV out of this 2021 Jayco Eagle so that he could start enjoying the RV life that he's been around for about 25 years now. And although it took a lot of doing, I'm very pleased with the way it turned out. So what we'll do is take a look at the top where the solar panels are. These are four 445 watt panels. They're wired in series and parallel. So those two are in series, those two are in series, each putting out hopefully about 80 volts open circuit. I did go ahead and utilize the factory Jayco wiring for the pre-wire. That was there. They used a pretty heavy duty gauge there, so it worked out okay. But I do like how it keeps the panels off the roof. It was minimal amount of holes put in the roof. It's very strong, very serviceable on the residential clamps that are holding it down. I did put set screws in all of them to keep the base from shifting around if it was going to. And then with the residential style spring clips, it keeps all the wiring off the deck so that it doesn't collect dirt or leaves and doesn't rub. Remember, we took the TV antenna off. I put a attic vent basically. And this does a very good job of actually shading the roof. So this is too hot to put my hand on. And this right there, I can put my hand there forever. It's not hot at all. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, did it work?
132 Fahrenheit here. Shaded. 109.
20 degrees difference on the roof right there. Right in the living area, in the bedroom. What a brilliant design you came up with.
147. 100. I want to put white shrouds on there for not too much money at some point.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. 144. 100.
Sun's a powerful thing, huh? Yeah, their job is to collect a lot of sunlight and a lot of heat.
So maybe when it's cool, get some basic glass cleaner, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just clean it and then see. I mean, I could do it right now, but
it'll evaporate as soon as you put it on. Now, it's been my experience, quite honestly, Stacy. Unless there's mud caked on the panels, a little bit of dust does not affect their performance whatsoever. It'll protect that rubber membrane. It's very serviceable, so you can look underneath it. And honestly, to take the panels off, it's just the 4 bolts. They would still come out, even though they're secured down below right there. That doesn't affect that. You know, Stacy is an awning guy. He did put slide out toppers on his 3 slide outs. He just knocked that out. He even put a window awning over on this side, which will make life even better for him. And if we get down below, you'll see the skylight in the shower is still there, but there's a lot more shade on it from the solar panel, so you won't get baked out of the bathroom in full sun like most RVs. Now, what Stacy wanted more than anything was to basically boondock or dry camp anywhere he wanted and be able to use the entire RV without running the generator. He has a backup generator, but he wanted to make sure the 2 ACs worked and everything inside the RV would work off of 110 power. He was convinced by a lot of social influencers that 48 volt was the way to go. So we went with 3 Vader 48, well actually these are 51.2 volt server rack batteries for a total of 300 amp hours because we're in parallel on this. So we get to add all that amperage together. And when we do the math at 51.2 volts, it's just above 15,000 watt hours. It's a substantial amount. Hopefully you guys saw how I installed that battery bank. I think it's pretty well secured. And then I just use this to actually keep the compartment from shifting around, and also a place to secure the battery cables on the back side there. We have 2 Victron multi-plus 2, 48 volt and 3000. I know it's not 3000 watt, but we're going to call it 3000 watt. And rather than get clever with a whole bunch of circuitry and transfer switches and junction boxes, I tried to make this as simple as possible because those Victron inverters can actually switch 50 amp of power. So what I did was wire the shore power directly into both inverters right down there. So there's no transfer switch, no junction box, no plug you have to plug into. Shore code goes straight into the inverters. If you're plugged into 50 amp, it goes straight in and back out again, back to the distribution inside. If you were paying attention, the shore cord didn't originally go right here. It was way back next to the furnace here. I relocated that and I put a utility light to conceal that hole because it was easier just to move the short cord right there rather than rerouting a whole bunch of heavy duty 6-gauge 50 amp wiring. An added benefit is his generator is right here. So if you ever did want to plug into his generator, it's not even a couple feet from the short cord connection to the generator. Now what I also did was I blocked off some of this area so nobody's tempted to put storage things right next to the battery connections and wiring. I did the same thing over here. Hopefully you can see. From this point, it goes from the inverter back to the hi Stacy.
Hi.
110 volt distribution center here in the galley, which made this a much more difficult job than most fifth wheels because normally all that is right at the front door at the overhead area. These are the things that nobody sees on all these videos. Running wire is my least favorite thing. Well, one of my least favorite things. Now, while I have covered it in a lot of videos on this series, we went with 48 volt because it can handle a lot of current through tiny little wires. And even the wires that are going to the inverter, even though they're 12 gauge, are a lot bigger than they need to be. Over here, I did install the Lynx Distributor 1000. There's just a bus bar with built-in fuse holders. It just was easier for cable management. I did put the ground smart shunt hooked directly to the Lynx Distributor bus bar there. And while you might say there's no DC disconnect, all the batteries do have a DC disconnect on them. I didn't see a reason to be redundant with a main disconnect. You just turn off all of them right there. Over here, because the trailer is still a 12 volt system for most of it, we needed a way to charge up the 12 volt battery since we disabled the onboard power converter. So this is a DC to DC converter, goes from 48 volt to 12 volt. It maxes out about 30 amps. There's just a circuit breaker that runs for that 12 volt that goes to the battery disconnect over here. I did still retain the house battery here, so it does have a 12 volt battery on it still, because 30 amps may not be enough to run slide outs and jacks all at the same time while the lights are on. Now directly over here is going to be the MPP charge controller. There's a Victron 150/70, so it can handle up 150 volts and 70 amps. At the bottom of these things, nobody points it out, there's a little selector dial. You need to set that up for 7, which is lithium iron phosphate. Other than that, this is going to be the disconnect from the panels over current protection. So this is what's running up to the panels. If you want to disable the panels, you can just trip the breaker right there. That's the rough overview of this system. I have tested the whole thing out. We are currently inverting and making power, but one of the more common questions I might get is, where is the control panel, you know, that touch screen on the inside? And I didn't install the servo module that communicates all these functions together up to the monitor panel, and why I didn't do that. When I was asked to do this, I could not be guaranteed that he was going to have access to internet all the time. So I did install a Victron smart dongle down there, which does communicate with the inverters right there. This is Bluetooth, that's Bluetooth. And surprisingly, the smart shunt is also Bluetooth. So all that's accessible by his phone, or if he wants to have a tablet logged into it all the time. I didn't go with the smart display or the servo that handles all of that, because it's my understanding when talking to Victron and Victron installers, the little known fact is all the servo is Bluetooth connected, but you can't connect to it unless you're logged on to your Victron Energy login information through the website. So it has to be logged on through a good website, through either Ethernet or Wi-Fi at a location, and he's going to be boondocking or dry camping, and he couldn't guarantee that he's going to have internet all the time. And because you can't use the Bluetooth dongle with the servo, I went with the Bluetooth dongle because you can use that no matter what. And sometimes you don't want to get out of bed to go look at the touch screen. And while if you do have wireless internet or internet available to you, operate the whole system and see how the trailer's doing in a remote setting. As internet might be a liability for him, I didn't want him to lock into something that he couldn't use without internet. Now Stacy went ahead and turned on the ACs because he's probably hot inside there. Now this shore cord currently is not connected to anything, so we are running off of the inverter. So if we go to the app, we can see what's going on. So in the Victron app, I can connect to the smart dongle. If I back out, we can see it right. VE Bus Smart right there. It'll show you what the inverter is currently doing. Line 1 is pulling about 1500 watts. Line 2 is pulling about 1700 watts because Stacy did go ahead and turn both AC units on when I was talking to you guys. You should have heard the inverters turn on. Now directly over here is going to be the MPP charge controller. This is a Victron 150/70, so it can handle up 150 volts and 70 amps. At the bottom of these, this switch that says on is actually the on-off switch, so I could hit that and turn the inverter off, charger off, or the whole system off if I wanted to. And I could limit shore power coming in, so I could limit it down to 25 amps if I wanted to. Now if I were to back out of here, I can go to the smart shunt and see what's going on as far as everything going into the battery and out of the battery. I did set up the smart shunt to understand it's a 300 amp battery, but it does not talk directly to the battery. Right now, we're losing about 50 amps from the battery running the 2 AC units. The time remaining says 2 hours and 7 minutes. That's a lie, don't worry about that. We go to the smart solar over here. We can see at 2:20 in the afternoon, the system's putting out about 1300 watts, putting 24 amps to the system. It's really not going to the battery, it's being absorbed by the inverter at this point. But if we were to back out of here and I go to the batteries and I log into the batteries, I have all three of them linked together here. Running both ACs currently, it looks like I could run them for 4 hours and 20 minutes or so. They're only at 79% charge because I have been testing everything out. If I scroll down, you can see the individual cells for the battery, how many cycles we've done. We've only done the second one, not the factory one. So on battery 3, which is on the driver's side, same thing going on over there. And then battery 2 is the middle one. Really not too much difference is going on there. So that's pretty interesting. I did follow the manufacturer's recommendations for the batteries. They are secured pretty well. Obviously nobody should be stacking anything on top of the batteries. I don't know that I should have to tell Stacy that. The inverters, I ran them all day yesterday. These battery cables never got hot, unlike a 12-volt system where they can get quite hot because they're quite inefficient. But if we were to go back inside and I were to turn off the second AC, which is the bedroom AC, and we go back into the batteries, now with just one AC running in full sun, looks like we could run it for about 13 hours before the battery will go dead. Now, of course, there's a downside of that. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so if we ran it for 13 hours straight, we wouldn't be charging the battery in the basement. And so, see, 13 plus 14, that'd be, I don't know, almost 4 o'clock in the morning, the battery would be dead, assuming that you run the battery all night. So it is still important for him to monitor his battery use. It'd be nice to run the ACs constantly during the sunlight, but if you do that with this array, he wouldn't be able to charge the batteries during the day. The array would almost keep up with the ACs by themselves, but if he wants to completely go running 100% AC all the time, he would have to add more panels on the roof. Now, I obviously did not set it up to have more panels on that rack. If you wanted to add more, they would have to go back here or in the front. The main reason why I did what I did, besides being able to put as much solar in this area as I could without putting a whole bunch of holes in the roof is that I've noticed that just a little bit of shade cast from these AC units or anything else, even the vent lids, greatly reduces the effectiveness of your solar array. So for a lot of people out there that went through all the hassle to put 2,000 watts of solar on their roof and Tetris all the small little panels on, not only did they put a lot of holes in the roof, but once the AC is shading any part of that, or a vent shading any part of that, or even your TV antenna shading it, it greatly reduces the actual power outage of the panel. I think if it was me and I did want to add more solar to the whole thing, and if I was going to be camping in kind of the same location for a few months, I would probably just invest in a second MPP charge controller. There's still room over there to install a second one over there, and just have another quick connect plug, even though this one right there, you don't use that one. That's just for 12 volt. And then just have an array, like ground array that you could hook up to, and that would be more than enough power at that point. He still has his backup Onan or Cummins 4,000 watt generator right here. This does a really good job of charging the batteries and running at least one AC unit. It is loud and it is expensive. So that's the pretty much overview of the system that I installed. As most complicated one that I've ever installed. 48 volt does seem to perform exceptionally well, and I understand why everybody says to do it, but it is very complicated. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. It can be done. It is expensive. There's only two things I do want to point out to Stacy. One is that his water heater is a propane water heater, but it does have a 110 heating element. That 110 heating element will be powered on if you turn on the 110 side with the inverters on. They usually draw about 11 amps by themselves, so that's nearly 1,300 watts of power that the inverters will be taking from the batteries. So I would recommend that he just uses the water heater in propane mode. If we went to water right there, so don't ever use an electric water heater unless you're plugged into 50 amp. If anything, I would probably just encourage him to go to the breaker down here and trip the water heater, which is right there. Probably trip the fireplace too, because that space heater right here will also power up with the inverter, and that's an awful lot of wasted power to make hot air off the batteries. He does have a residential Whirlpool refrigerator, so it was absolutely vital that he does have an inverted system on here. And he will be traveling up north, where hopefully it's not nearly as hot as it is here in the desert down in the valley. Now the second thing has to do with that refrigerator. He was like every other uncaring customer and left me a refrigerator full of food when he dropped it off here over a week ago. Now, of course, anybody that follows my channel should know that my shop is completely off the grid. That means I don't have any power to keep his refrigerator running. So I hope the irony is not lost on anybody that for the entire time it was here, I basically had his trailer plugged into my Bluetti AC300 Max to keep the refrigerator operating. I'm down to one 330 watt panel on the ground here to kind of keep up with it. I did use all of his panels while I was doing this to keep the whole thing operating and to test out his panels. But the funny part was that basically I recommended that he just gets two Bluetti AC500 Maxes with their own battery modules. And these are 51.2 volts DC, and just throw them in the basement, and then he could have just plugged in his short cord right into it, operated all this from Bluetooth effortlessly. Like I said in a lot of these videos about these solar generators, even though they might be a little bit more expensive and a little less do-it-yourself, all the engineering's been done for you. All the cable routing's been done for you. You don't have to design anything. You don't have to wire anything. It's all included. The DC to DC charger's included. The bus bar's included. The MPP solar charge controller's included. In fact, there's two of them, so you could have two arrays. And of course, the inverters are already connected. All he would have had to do was strap them into the basement right there, plug the short cord into it. And while he still would have needed solar installed on the roof, I was done with that last week. I mean, yes, I am very proud of this. It does look pretty slick, and it is a little bit more capable than the Bluetti AC500 would be. But you could imagine if he wanted to trade in this trailer or sell it, nobody's going to pay extra too much for all this additional solar that he invested into this. I did design it to be modular in the sense that he could take it all out with him pretty easily. But if you already had the Bluetti AC300 or even 500 Max, you could just unstrap them, rip them out, and he didn't really lose anything. It's still his to use. Or if you wanted to just go camping without the trailer, he could take one out, throw it in the truck, and have all the power he could ever need with the solar generator without all that hassle. So this is only purpose built for this trailer, or it has to be taken out and installed in another one. Like I said, this might have a little bit more expensive price tag. You don't have to pay for labor or installation. And in the year that I've had it right here in the shop, I've had zero problems with it. If anything, my solar panels on the roof I've had problems with. But I really think these solar generators are probably going to be the future of RVing, because it's all just built in. You slide it in and it's done. Everything's already done for you. The thinking's done for you. And with that, I'm going to send Stacy on his way and wish him good luck on all his future endeavors, and to never call me again or tell me there's a problem with this system. Alright, so he's going to put his everything away. I've had my fill of the BM Pro. Ugh. Hey. Now, with no real critique about Jayco or the build quality, this is a pretty cool floor plan and a huge travel trailer. It's nearly as long as my motorhome, so I'm going to watch Stacy as he leaves the yard so I don't get in trouble for damaging his trailer. Oh yeah, one more thing. The truck is plugged into the trailer, but we don't need to modify anything on the truck side for being damaged by that 48 volt or the by the 51 volt batteries that we put in the basement, because this only is going to charge up that 12 volt battery right there. Has nothing to do with the 48 volt system. Basically, there's 3 electrical systems in here now: the 12 volt, the 48 volt, and the 120 volt. Now, it's very important for you to understand this, Stacy, and that's why I'm recording it. Periodically, every day, you need to get on the roof and check and make sure those panels aren't loose and the rack isn't loose.
Did you use Loctite?
Never,
Oh,
never.
No red, no blue?
No, it's stainless steel hardware, so it already jammed out.
Okay. Well, I'll just call you.
Well, I know you don't mind getting on roofs. You do awnings. There's the best sight in the entire world: tail lights. Hey, thanks for your patience with me. I'm sorry it took so long.
It's all right, man. You rock, man.
All right, Awnings R Us, right?
Awnings R Us, RV Awnings R Us. We'll be in Grand Junction all summer. Come see us.
All right. I'm happy to see you leave. Don't come back. Check your solar panels every day. That is a big, big, big trailer. Woo!